Welcome to Do What Matters Most. This is episode 6 in the series, What Makes Marriages Work? Much of who we are is influenced by the kinds of attachments we have with others. You can find more lifelong happiness and fulfillment when you go beyond just social confidence and develop good friendship skills to form lasting relationships. These kinds of friendships will help you overcome disappointment, adapt to change, and help you make necessary changes to improve yourself. Visit mattersmostmedia.org to find more about the podcast and firstanswers.com to find tons of relationship resources.
I am going to speak about exceptional friendship. I wish to be a voice which firmly and persistently proposes that you will be much happier if you enjoy several different kinds of friends and friendships, but that exceptional friendships are the objective that all of us should pursue. The reasons for this is that much of who you are and what you do has been influenced by your earlier years where you've learned to play, socialize, and form several different types of attachments. Some of these will be your family, of course, but many of them will be other people who may have only a brief association with you, and also those who become friends and long-term associates. Recently, I went to a nice restaurant for dinner with my wife and 2 daughters. As we walked toward our table, a woman who was a fairly large group of people loudly called out my wife's name. My wife turned in that direction, and after recognizing the woman who had called out, she immediately put one hand on each side of her head, tugging her hair. Both she and this woman laughed. My 2 daughters responded to the warm welcome with an equally warm response, and just briefly they stopped at this woman's table and added some warm comments and then came to the table where I was seated. Explaining, my wife said, "That is Mallory, our hairstylist. She knows everything about our family." When Mallory finished her meal, she came to our table to speak to us, including me, and it was as if we were very old friends. You might be agreeing with me, or you might be wondering why friendships are all that important. After all, if you prefer your solitary life, you will think you're getting along quite well without spending much time with friends. This was illustrated by a young adult patient who suffered from depression and high anxiety. He had isolated himself from others, spending time working on his music, and when I asked why he did that, he told me that in the last years of his high school experience, he had felt at least half the people in his school were idiots. Suggesting that this was quite a broad brushstroke to paint half the people in such a negative way, I asked him to explain. I suspected he had had some painful experiences. He was a bit shy, and he felt awkward socially. But after searching, I could not find any experience where other people had mistreated him. So we began a program of social skill development and confidence building designed to help him increase in his social involvement and to find a set of friendships. We started with his family and made a little progress. Then, feeling good about that, he began to work outward to other people. He practiced meeting people, asking questions and starting conversations, carrying on a casual conversation, and giving compliments and other social skills. In a short while, as his social confidence grew, most of his depressed moods disappeared, and he began to consider life choices that included meeting people and creating friendships. After a while, he had selected a few of the people he had met to be his closest friends. He began spending time with them, both at their invitation and also at his. I could tell he was learning some of their ideas. One of these was attending college, and so he decided he would also. His experience is quite common and demonstrates how beneficial friendships can be. He also demonstrated, however, that there are large numbers of young adults who find friendships difficult. And as it turns out, a lot of the adults, their parents in particular, also have difficulty with friendships. Now, as the next step in this lesson, I wish to focus on another very significant reason for not just being socially confident, but also to learn excellent friendship skills and spend time with people who will or can be good friends in return. This means that some people may not be compatible with us, and being selective is probably a very good idea. So I would like for us to first consider the benefits of exceptional friendships. At the beginning, I would like to emphasize a point and emphasize it more than one time. I'm not just talking about casual friends or even good friends. I am talking about learning how to produce exceptional friendships, those friendships that produce the highest reward, the greatest satisfaction, and last indefinitely. Forming these friendships will help you see that you are taking an active role in creating the quality of your life instead of being passive and anxious. In addition, these kinds of friendships will help you adjust to disappointments, adapt to change, and mentor you into seeing and understanding what might be necessary for you to change in order to improve yourself. Forming these kinds of friendships provides early and ongoing information about yourself, whether it's positive or not so positive. Therefore, excellent friendships are experiences where people learn to see themselves more accurately and usually more positively than those who do not have such relationships. This affects the quality of decisions, so people who have exceptional friendships are less likely to get into situations that are miserable. Those people without such friendships tend to be less happy and more pessimistic about life. Exceptional friends will form a network of people who will provide you with several forms of help and opportunity. It is a few friends or several that will lead you to believe that you have a safety net and can rely on help if you need it. This may include career help, support when there are challenges, opportunities to explore and participate in situations you might not if alone, and a chance to validate what you think and a source of enjoyment and satisfaction. In addition to the foregoing, working toward extraordinary friendships will enable you to first start and then maintain a friendship that will call forth some of the very best forms of behavior. Your better self will emerge in order to be a good friend. You will learn through the process that good friendships are maintained only on the basis of honesty, kindness, and thoughtfulness, empathy, good communication, and especially loyalty. And these are only a few. Your friends, especially exceptional friends, will influence what you think are the most important aspects of life. Though the basis of your friendship might be a mutual interest of some kind, it will not be limited to that. In the intervening moments between events, the conversations and ideas presented by both of you or a group of friends will be viewed as serious enough to think more about. Your exceptional friendships will provide opportunities to learn about the basic reciprocals of life, such as giving and receiving, loyalty and commitment, managing time to ensure you communicate, and the ability to see both sides of any important issue. Extraordinary friendships will bring you into contact with loving and being loved. Among all the benefits of friendship, this may be the most important outcome of all. Last, I would like to point out that exceptional friends will enable you to examine your values and the importance of acting consistent with them. Values give us anchors in life, and when we act to retain and maintain them, our lives tend to be much happier. It is a very good friend, for example, who would tell us to avoid betraying our values, knowing that if we do betray what we value, we will not be happy, and there's nothing a friend or anybody else can do about that. So I hope I have given sufficient emphasis to the need to have friends, and especially excellent or extraordinary friendships. In some ways, the electronic advancements of the last 3 decades have offered the possibilities of communication and acquaintances which were previously unheard and unthought of. But ironically, and a bit sadly, they also offer reasons why many people are not developing friendship skills. So, because they are so important, in the next section I'm going to describe the types of tools and skills anyone can develop to prepare themselves to be an exceptional friend and to maintain exceptional friendships with many other people. So what is the foundation or the origin of exceptional friendships? According to George Kelly, a prominent psychologist who taught at Ohio State University in the 1950s, every individual is born with a very powerful motivation to learn how the world works. Therefore, we participate in experiences like friendships and interpret these experiences to help us make predictions and interpretations about the rest of our lives. When friendships are stable, then we think the world is more predictable. In fact, if we are faced with situations we do not know about, it typically creates anxiety and sometimes a lot of frustration. The world we live in is the same for all of us, but the way we experience it is different for each individual. The question then becomes, how do we learn the best version of how the world works, including understanding how to be successful with people? There are some specific answers to this question, but we get a clue of what might be involved by examining the lives of successful leaders. Most will openly acknowledge their success is due in large part to a mentor or to a friend who helped them along the way. These mentors, our friends, may have taught them new ideas, supported them, and encouraged them to keep going when they became discouraged. In fact, I have developed the axiom that hardly any of us succeed in life by ourselves. We are much wiser, to create what in business are called alliances, but the name of these are friendships. In his Psychology of Personal Constructs, Kelly proposed that we form mental representations of how to interpret events, and then we use these interpretations to make judgments for ourselves. So we are likely to interpret other people and our friendships based on what we've already experienced. Many of us are more mistrustful, and many have given up on finding exceptionally good friends. Well, it's also true that many of us are trusting, and we believe that there are exceptional friends for us based on our earlier experiences. But let's suppose that we want to be very good at friendship and learn how to find people and then encourage the growth of friendship until we are connected with exceptional friends. How do we go about it? Well, as it turns out, we acquire many of these mental representations from our association with others. That makes a lot of logical sense. If there is difficulty and unhappiness in our attempts to create friendship, we learn one set of constructs, usually including wariness and suspicion. A lot of young adults, for example, are currently avoiding the commitments of marriage because they might have had a failure experience earlier. So, if we have a positive friendship experience, however, then we typically will have a set of constructs that enable us to go on to greater and better forms of success. This is because we use our thoughts, our mental representations, to make predictions about what others will do and what we ourselves will do. If the predictions come true, then we think the construct is effective. If not, then we think our construct is wrong and needs to be replaced. So here's what we typically do. And please remember, this will be the case for the person or persons you wish to form exceptional friendships with. We tend to replicate our experiences and think of any new relationship as we did in the past. We think the new ones are going to be like the ones in the past, unless we are aware and realize that we have the option of making changes of bad ones and actually creating new ones. If both you and the other person had great experiences, then you both will likely look forward to positive experiences. If that is not true, then to get an exceptional friendship, you might need to work out some of your fears and change your thinking, or you might need help to help the other person do the same. It is also the case that each individual will see any relationship in highly individualized ways. So please expect that, and do not be worried that the other person does not see it the way you see it. Rather, use this idea to learn about each other, recognizing that what you see and think may or may not be shared. Getting acquainted with somebody who has differences than us can be enjoyable if we learn to respect and appreciate the difference. As you proceed, it will be naturally apparent to you that you will need to plan and prioritize in order to create exceptional friendships. Consider your time, organize it, and plan the best opportunities for you. Also consider that at first you will likely hunt for commonalities between the two of you. But as you learn more, you may discover that you both might find opposites. And quite often people are fearful of the opposites because it looks like there is no basis for a friendship. You would be amazed at the number of exceptional friends who started out their friendship by thinking each person was so different they had nothing in common. Therefore, rather than being upset by someone who is like this, continue to gather information, explain what you see, and seek to understand the other person. Gradually, you will discover connections, and you will discover that you have both the positive connections of commonalities and the appreciation for the differences that make each of you unique. So now imagine that you have a variety of very good friendships, and you're learning from them, and your friends are learning from you. So, how do you go about taking these good friendships and creating exceptional friendships so that you can enjoy the rewards an advanced form of friendship creates? Please note that this lesson assumes there are different qualities of friends. So, for example, you might be an acquaintance of somebody. You might have someone who currently is a good friend, and you would like to see your friendship blossom, so you have an exceptional friendship. If you are a man, you'll probably assume that frequently meeting and talking and sharing some activity will do the job, and your friendship will strengthen. That might be the case if you also include the long conversations you get into and the discoveries you make about yourself and the other person. If you are a woman, you will likely be sensitive to a number of nuances, and you will be able to select someone to create an exceptional friendship with based on the style of conversation, the feelings of association and awareness that you have when you're together, and the companionship enjoyment that both of you have when you spend time together. Now let's examine what you would do if you wanted to begin and create, therefore, exceptional friendships. At the beginning, cast a wide net and be selective. See if joining a club or a church organization or something that is related to your work will make it possible for you to increase the number of acquaintances you come in contact with. Exceptional friends are often hard to find. Become acquainted with many different people and participate with others, enjoying the experience. Learn to meet people without bias or prejudice or harsh judgment. Don't impulsively judge or misjudge anyone. It is true that sometimes bad experiences turn into good ones. That is, unless your friendships are based on the shared bias and prejudice you have with another person toward others. If that is the case, I propose you widen your circle of acquaintances to include many other people. But now review who you think can become exceptional friends by identifying those where the conversation is easy or provokes greater interest. Then consider the following, which might help you identify who can be an exceptional friend for you. First, look to see where there might be connections of some kind. Second, see if the other person shows a willingness to value and also communicates that they value other people. Notice if the other person shares interest in doing things with you. Notice whether the other person will or won't judge you. Being around somebody who is non-judgmental is a typically good sign of somebody who could be an exceptional friend. Note that the other person doesn't put you down or deliberately hurt your feelings. If he or she does, it's not a good sign. Pay attention to whether the person is kind and respectful to you. Also pay attention to whether this person enjoys your company and you don't have stress or arguments. Pay attention to the kind of enjoyment, and in some way exceptional friends are based on the idea that if we had 10 opportunities to spend time together, if 8 or 9 of them were enjoyable, we could use that to predict, like George Kelly proposed, that the next 8 or 9 would also be enjoyable. Pay attention and discover whether or not there is the presence or absence of manipulation. When somebody is insecure, they might manipulate. Manipulating individuals typically do not become exceptional friends. Also, pay attention to whether or not this person you're thinking about will have time to be with you, is trustworthy and willing to tell you the truth, even when it's hard for you to hear. Also, please notice that this person can laugh with you, can laugh at themselves, can laugh at you, and you're comfortable enough to do the same. Also, pay attention to whether or not this person sticks around when things get tough, makes you smile, is there to listen, and especially take note of whether or not they are willing to comfort you when you cry. That might not be as appropriate for men as it is for women, but a man can comfort a man by just paying attention, noticing, showing concern, and helping that person begin to feel as if he is supported. Now, in addition to setting a wide net and being selective, learn and use a set of high-caliber interpersonal skills. These interpersonal skills are like tools that enable people to form exceptional friendships. Some of these are like showing genuine interest in others, asking questions, listening well, and acknowledging the speaker by showing attention. It is not checking to see who has higher status, greater wealth, or more fame. When it is your turn to speak, do so as part of pacing your comments so you will not over or under talk the other person. Here are some other pieces of advice that I've learned over time from people who have had exceptional friendships, and I've learned them from people I consider to be my exceptional friends. Here's what an exceptional friend is like, and these are the tools that enable us to create these friendships. Generally, be cheerful and optimistic. Find things you enjoy to talk about, and even though there may be times to have serious talks about serious things, make certain there are other times when you mention the very good things about the conversations you have, the positive things that make your life successful and rewarding. And besides, pay attention to the fact that other serious conversations will come along and do so naturally. Be prepared as one of the interpersonal tools to talk about yourself. At first in short tidbits. Also sponsor the other person by asking for his or her experience and opinions. Follow up a first meeting with a second meeting by waiting a reasonable period of time. Romantic relationships invite us to follow up quickly, but typically friendships come because people have regulated the time to show respect for each other's time, and they don't want to apply too much pressure. So it's a little dicey here because you have to decide just is the right amount of time. Also, search for and find the commonalities you share with the other person and point them out. This is the reason we ask about where we're from, what experiences the other person have had, and what are our plans. All of these acquaintance questions are designed to find connections. Then occasionally test the relationship by communicating something spontaneously to see how the other person responds. Their interest will indicate what to do next. If they're interested in these spontaneous things you bring up, it's a really good sign. Now remember also that an exceptional friend will not be easy on you if you are wrong. So learn to practice justice and fairness and expect it. This will help you communicate a balanced view. Some friends might invite you to engage in wrongdoing or wrong thinking, but exceptional friends will ask you to think fairly about people and ask you to be just in your judgment of others. I also think that exceptional friends are made by demonstrations of loyalty. In the rapidly shifting environment that is our society, the idea of loyalty at work or among friends or even in our marriages means finding the very best thing for ourselves and moving to that by paying attention to and giving regard to everyone else who may be affected. The disregard is often practiced by employers and employees. So employers don't have as much regard or loyalty for the people they hire in some cases, and employees have discovered that they don't want to demonstrate a lot of loyalty either, so they'll move from job to job. So when we see someone recognized for being in the same organization for several years, it is often a bit surprising. Well, it's the same for friends. Sometimes people move quickly to one social grouping to another based who can do the most for them. In contrast, loyalty has become a clear hallmark of good friendship. Why is that? It is because this one form of behavior clearly communicates the value of the whole relationship. Demonstrations of loyalty also communicate commitment, caring, and benevolence. Besides, it is one of life's greatest rewards when you're either being loyal or having someone display loyal to you. I remember a mother telling me about her daughter who has just finished the 8th grade and was going into the 9th grade. She received a telephone call one evening from what could arguably be the most popular girl in the school. And this popular girl invited this woman's daughter to a special party. And the daughter was excited and obtained permission to go. And while there, she discovered that her closest friend was not there. And the conversation during the evening, several of these girls made derogatory comments about her. But they were going to form a club, and they were going to all buy the same article of clothing like a sweater, and they were going to wear it the same day, and they were going to have an inclusive group, which actually was also exclusive in the sense that it excluded others. Well, when this girl came home to her mother and was telling her about her mother asked her this question: was your friend there? No. Well, what about her? Is she going to be able to be a member of this club? I don't think so, the daughter responded. Then the mother said to her, honey, what do you think about loyalty? What do you think loyalty actually is? And the daughter began to talk about that, and the mother could see that she was torn between the desire to be in this group and loyalty to her friend. They talked more than one time, and gradually this daughter decided she would rather have a good friend who could become an exceptional friend than to join in a group of people where the motive for the group was to exclude other people. So now, having found individuals we think can become exceptional friends, and we've used these interpersonal tools to create a friendship and things are going along nicely, let's address the next question. How do you cement a friendship? Cementing means make it permanent and make it so that these forms of loyalty that I talked about are present and available. Well, there are 3 or 4 things that we can do, and all of them appear to be important. Number 1, according to the research, friendships are cemented when people are able to show support to each other in a variety of ways. This requires, that you'll be aware of and encouraging before and after big events. So as you find out about people and you discover the things that are looming in their schedule, when you contact and say, I'm just calling to let you know that I'm with you, thinking about you, and so on. Apparently, this form of support, mutually shared, is one of the significant ingredients that make relationships last and turn a good relationship into an exceptional one. Number 2, you can cement your relationships if you're open with your emotions, feelings, and thoughts. Talking about challenges with a friend can help you both feel more connected. And so if you actively listen to your friend, then don't be afraid to be honest about things you think your friend needs to hear. Now, why is that in your opinion? Well, if you were measuring the attachment process between you and a friend, you could, after the first meeting, take out a measuring tape and ask you and your friend to stand in a distance about how each feels comfortable. Then you could put the tape in your navel and take it to the other person's and measure in actual inches. So let's suppose that you could do that every time you're together. What would happen is you would gradually see the distance between the two of you closing. Well, what happens when you're able to be open about your feelings in an appropriate way without revealing priority information, and you're able to listen to, pay attention, and be involved with the other person, the distance closes between you and this friend and something mutual is created. And it's a form of mutuality that lets both people know that they are heard, understood, appreciated, and cared for. Number 3, help your friend out with practical things. There will be things that they will help in terms of what they need. Sometimes you have to listen carefully and pay attention to the circumstances. It's like a mother, for example, who has difficulty making an appointment with a doctor and somebody to take care of a child. So if you knew that and you had the time, you could call and say, look, why don't I come and take care of your baby? Or if you want to bring him over to my house, I'll take care of it. This form of helping out with practical things is considered one of the top 4 valuable forms of behavior where exceptional friendships are concerned. I have spent time, for example, with a lot of executive leadership teams, and I've learned that it takes several months to create a good team. And one of the signs of an exceptional leadership team is that they start providing practical help to each other. They will know each other and they'll say things like, do you need a place to stay when you travel to this city? I've got a home there that has room that you could stay in. Somebody will say, I know you need a lawnmower. Would you like to borrow mine? And these are people who in the work environment have spent time together on this executive team, become acquainted with each other. They have shown support. They have been open with their feelings about things. And now they're helping out with these practical things. It's a form of progression from what we consider to be a good friendship to the exceptional friendships that last throughout our lives. Now last, the 4th thing that it will enable you to cement a relationship is to boast your friends' talents and abilities. Praise them for successes. Praise them for admirable qualities. Point out to them the high caliber things that you see in their lives. If they're not there, then don't make them up. No one benefits from false honesty. But it is important, to communicate to your friend that you see these constructive things and that you see increasing numbers of them as the friendship continues. Being told that somebody sees in you something of great value matters to us. And when 2 people do it with each other, then this is one of the parts of creating or cementing an exceptional friendship. Now, the next question that we want to pay attention to is this one. Well, we have started to get an exceptional friendship. You've joined groups, you've found people, you have involved these effective interpersonal skills. Then you've done some things to cement the friendship so it's firmer and more stable and so on. Now the question becomes is how are these relationships and friendships maintained? And the crucial thing is to know how to maintain them over time. There's actually quite a few things that the research tells us is possible for us to do. And I'm going to spend some time with each one because I think it might be valuable for you to hear them and to understand the variety of things that allow you to maintain relationships. I would like to point out, however, that this is one of the skill sets for people who are successful with people. They know how to maintain friendships and relationships. People who are less successful, that is, they don't have as many friends as they would like, or they have conflicted experiences with their friends, typically are not good at maintaining. So if you want to be better at maintaining friendships and maintaining the exceptional kind of friendship, please consider the following. Don't let distance break your friendship apart. Keep friends up to date. Find ways to connect. We have smartphones. We have texting. We have all sorts of other kinds of communicational devices. This makes it possible for us to not lose sight of one another, to actually schedule time for us to have a Saturday morning conversation or a Sunday afternoon and maintain the friendship. Now, why should you do this? Well, it might occur to you that since the other person has moved away, there's no longer as much value because you can't meet daily or talk and so on and go to lunch and do the things you ordinarily did. My experience, however, from many different people tells me that maintaining these friendships over time have great benefits for us. It begins with us learning to do the things that make it possible, but then these friendships often have additional ways to help us. For example, let's suppose you have a daughter and she has a hard time finding somebody to date that she thinks she can marry. Well, an exceptional friend probably knows some male that might be available. And while it seems a little crass, to maintain friendships for the benefits we hope they will accrue, there's simply nothing wrong with that to form friendships and to maintain them over time and continue providing practical help for one another. 2, reach out to your friend. Acquire the confidence if you need it, but also communicate confidence by reaching out to them on a fairly regular basis. Keep your relationships positive. Don't be too negative. Don't complain very much. Positive conditions for people are really interesting. There's been some interesting research about, what's most accurate, the positive or the pessimistic view of us? And many years ago, people thought it was the pessimistic view. But there's some evidence that the positive view of another person may actually be as or more accurate about them than the pessimistic things we would communicate. It's just simply better for us to focus on being realistic, but at the same time identifying things that are very positive. See if you can spend time together, even if it's monthly, or twice a year, or whatever is possible. I know of a woman, for example, who annually hosts an overnight get-together for all of her college roommates. There were 6 of them in the same apartment. They get together. They're now all mature women. Most of their children, in fact, are grown, and they've been getting together over a year, each year over their lifetime since college. It's an amazing thing, really, and they communicate with each other. They share birthdays. They share important events in their family, and the support that they give to each other really is quite remarkable. It's also important for you to understand where your friend is in his or her life, so you need to make some adjustments based on that. Life changes based on our age stage and the conditions we're in. When we're middle-aged, when we're older, when we're aged and retired, some adjustment needs to be made for the circumstances that we're in. When we do that, it helps us understand that that person knows us, is aware of us, and can actually adapt to life along with us. It is sometimes very hard to know that we are aging, even though we don't want to. And so 40-year-old birthdays, for example, may be a pivotal time, or 50 years, or 60, or 70, or just plain old growing old. See, and the fear that might have, or the worry, or the discomfort that comes from growing old, see if that's recognized by a friend. It's truly an exceptional thing. It is also true that you can maintain your friendship over time by carrying out a strong desire to share. We're just talking about things that are important to you, and they don't have to be hugely significant in terms of society's measure, but things that are important to you. Planting your flowers, getting a lot of really good vegetables out of your garden. They may seem pretty pedestrian, but they are the things that make up exceptional friendships. They replenish the friendship when you share this kind of information, and if you include in that seeing some of the positive things and expressing gratitude for what the friend has given to you. One of the most significant parts of maintaining the friendship over time is the displays of respect that we need to learn and show. Respect includes a lot of things, one of which is to respect the boundaries, that is, people have their own individual lives, for example, as well as having a relationship. I know of a couple of women, for example, who were being very good friends to each other, but they would ask for more time, increasing more times, and began to neglect their respective families. And we were talking one day in my clinical office about that, and I said, well, then, which is the most appropriate or the more rewarding for you? Well, both of them looked at each other and said, we hadn't realized, one said, I hadn't realized that we were spending this much time because it was so satisfying. But their husbands knew that they were spending that much time, and so they reorganized and went back and established a new boundary. It is important also for you to be what is called really present. When you are together, good relationships, in fact, exceptional relationships, are maintained by the physical and emotional and psychological presence and the absence of distraction. I don't know how to emphasize that in any other way except to say that the ideas of indifference or showing annoyance or something else may seem like little measures or matters, but they're not. See, the idea of exceptional friendship means that it's so exceptional, we are focused, we are going to pay attention, and the expectations, therefore, are high. When these expectations are not demonstrated by not listening or something else, and it becomes a pattern, it can be devastating to the nature of the friendship. You might think by now that there's a long list of methods you can use to maintain the relationship, but I'm not quite finished. But the point I want to make is that all these are worth it, and if you want to re-listen to this and add up some of these to see how well you're doing, it would be possible. But let me give you, for instance, over lifetime. See, in order to make sure that our exceptional friendship is maintained, we go through experiences, including adversity with one another, and how we participate in that also reinforces the nature of the friendship. I know of a woman, for example, who had a stillborn child and was devastated. And one of the very first telephone calls was a friend who by that time lived many miles away. And they both wept on the phone to each other. And the experience of this woman who had difficulty with the birth was lifted a little bit because of the kindness and the attention of her friend. So because we are having exceptional friendships over a lifespan, then adversity would be one of the things that both of us will experience. It's also true that we'd likely experience some form of success. It is also true, however, that we are going to have real periods of distress or stress. And in an exceptional friendship, we learn to keep that in check so that we don't bring a lot of negative things from the outside into the relationship. But I can tell you, and you probably know, that the opportunity to talk about the things that produce this stress, like a child who is being defiant, or the potential of a divorce or something like that, and being able to talk about it is enormous a degree of comfort. I've had both men and women ask me the question, well, who can I talk to about the fact that I'm getting a divorce. And I'll ask them who their close friends are and to name them by first name. And I'll say one or two people and make sure that your husband knows you're going to talk to them and just them. Because being able to talk to somebody, helps us survive the real, true challenges of our life. It is also true that over time, because we have successes and adversity and other kinds of challenges, exceptional friends are able to keep us humble. And they do this by reminding us of things they know about us that are not perfect. At the same time, they're willing to accept and laugh at some of these imperfections. The idea that we are humble and able to appreciate the good things in each other, but to not over-exaggerate ourselves, turns out to be really important. I have noticed that sometimes each person will get sort of, quote, too full of themselves, unquote. And when they do this, one of the things that happens quite often is a very good friend, an exceptional friend, will pop the balloon and say, well, let me tell you what I'm seeing. And they do that as a way to help them and to demonstrate their love. I also propose that maintaining an exceptional friendship over time is based on the ability to practice forgiveness. And it's not just forgiveness between you and your friend. It's being able to forgive neighbors that you hear about or a spouse that you hear about. In a surprising number of cases, men and women who get divorced and then later regret it were members of a small group of people who supports a divorce. And so they'd go and talk and visit with them. And then since they thought, well, these other people seem to like what happened after the divorce, so maybe it won't be so bad for me. On the other hand, we don't typically have forgiveness groups that hang around, but we ought to. And we ought to make forgiveness a central part of our friendships with one another. I want to maintain this friendship over time. I will need, on occasion, to forgive your mistakes. But I will also be faced with situations where I need to forgive somebody in my family, or a neighbor, or somebody else. Forgiveness is not easy typically. And when we're making an effort to forgive, having the support of an exceptional friend can make all the difference. Because we can talk about it. We can talk about why it's difficult and what is hard, to make it happen. I have had occasions where, in asking people if they understand the process of forgiveness, they'll describe it in fairly primitive terms. And yet they are faced with a hugely challenging condition that requires great skill in forgiving. And so in the process of teaching forgiveness and helping people learn to do it, I have discovered that whole process changes the feelings that people have for each other and improves them significantly. Last, when it comes to maintaining the relationship over time, it is important for us to recognize that growth takes place, and through the friendship, we are motivated to become better people. If you're not motivated to become better people and just have an occurrence or an acquaintance that is based on, say, fun or some form of enjoyment, that might be okay for a time. But I promise you that exceptional friendships include the idea that we both can become better because of each other. When you have exceptionally good friends, then you are fortunate indeed. They do not happen magically, but many different kinds of good friendships can become better. I hope that is the case for you. I hope that you expand your range of friendships so that your life can be exceptional.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Do What Matters Most, which is sponsored by FirstAnswers.com, where you can find new tools for families and parents of 21st century kids with a focus on emotional self-reliance. Visit FirstAnswers.com to sign up for a free newsletter. Find Do What Matters Most on Facebook and our website, mattersmostmedia.org, where you can ask Dr. Scoresby your own questions. Remember to subscribe to stay up to date with new episodes. Give us a rating and write a review on the podcast app or Google Podcasts, and let us know what you think about Do What Matters Most.